clear the throats. Janoah Van Kekem, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. Thanks.
When did you change from Joey to Janoah?
Wow, straight into it.
Really? Yeah.
Something good, thanks. How are you? Yeah, all right.
Good.
How's that ramen for lunch, by the way?
Oh, phenomenal. What's the place called?
Chaco Bar.
Chaco Bar, off Oxford Street, Darlinghurst. Tell your friends.
Best ramen around.
We shouldn't tell too many people because
No, it's small.
don't go there.
Forget it. So, so anyway, now we've got the
Now that we've warmed into
pleasantries.
it. Yeah.
So Joey came from me as a child growing up, having a different name. So Janoah was obviously a different name, and I grew up in I wouldn't say regional, but it was about an hour out of Adelaide, so down south, and I was a little bit browner than the other kids, and B, had a weird name, and that wasn't cool, and normal was cool. So any opportunity I had to be closer to normal, I would take. So, and everyone used to muck my name up. Even teachers sometimes would almost play around and almost half do it on purpose, you could feel, and always make a bit of a point of it, and I'd feel horrendous about it. And so I started trying to think of ways to come up with a nickname, and Joe was the next best thing. And so for a long time, I would make my parents even call me Joe, and I'd be like, "Oh, you call me Janoah, you made my life as a kid hard," and that was my story. That was how it came about. And but now it's quite funny because my dad's now been so tuned in to call me Joe. Now I get angry saying, "You named me Janoah, call me Janoah." It's quite funny how it's flipped around.
Trying to get him back.
But for years, it was really about fitting in and being more normal.
God, normal. What were we thinking?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that story.
No.
That's new. That's news to me.
Okay.
What is it? You might not actually know the answer to this, but I'm going to put it on you anyway. When someone goes on a spiritual journey, what is it about them changing their name? Is it a rebirthing thing?
That's an interesting question. I think it is, because I think a big part of spiritual journey is about going beyond the identity we've created for ourselves in the past, and often that was attached to a certain name, and potentially this whole new label and name is a chance to sort of have a fresh start and create a new identity,
you.
potentially. Yeah, that'd be, because now trying to put myself in that situation, not saying I necessarily want on a spiritual path.
You are, mate.
I kind of have.
You're a
let's be
meditation
honest.
teacher.
Yeah, you're right.
I'd say you've fallen into that
As
category.
in, not that there's nothing spiritual about the name. It's more so now wanting a more authentic version of me to be seen, and Janoah now is that. So whether other people have thought that their name didn't align with that potentially, I don't know. That's a rough idea I could throw out there.
Do you have a spirit animal?
Not specific. I mean, funny enough, the tattoo I've got on my arm.
Yeah, isn't there something?
Yeah. So it was based on a vision mandala, and the spirit animal around that was a white tiger, which is still a sort of vision and having that, but also the ability to sort of be grounded and hear as well. But I've never, apart from that, I don't think I've got a spirit animal. I'm sure I've got one. I also quite like the concept of sort of eagle, and I sort of, my dad really enjoys collecting feathers. He's a bit of a hippie, which initially
Proper
was
hippie,
something
I
I
love.
was very much against. But he quite enjoys collecting feathers, and so now I quite like the idea of like owl feathers for sort of wisdom, and then eagle sort of being that sort of that power creature.
What was it about him being a hippie that was a deterrent for you? The normal piece again?
Yeah, man.
Interesting.
Well, what what it's like, when you're playing footy and the rest.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it's sort of the boys and picking up girls and getting pissed on the weekends.
Yep.
And you want to be part of the tribe.
You do.
And my dad did a lot of stuff with spirituality, and he did a lot of stuff for the Indigenous as well. And so he'd sometimes have Aboriginals around at the house, and I didn't like that. Because it was, because also growing up, I'm not sure if have I shared, like growing up also, which is an interesting thing for me now to realise, is that Mum pointed out to me a while ago, she's like, "Remember school?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." She goes, "Remember primary school at the young age?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "So you used to come home from school crying every day." And I was like, she goes, "It used to break my heart sending you to school." And I was like, I've got vague memories of it, right? And then I was like, she goes, "Yeah, because you used to get teased." for the name, a little bit darker. I'm not overly dark. Look at me, like, you know, I've got my winter tan.
You do. Yeah. In fact, we're pretty similar at the moment.
You got a bit on
Yeah, credit.
And so I would get teased for that, and it wasn't until I became good at sports and where girls started to show interest in me when suddenly I was like, became part of the cool kid. And so again, then it was a big part of when I was growing up and part of the footy club and chasing girls and all the rest that continued. They want to be part of the crew because that's what made me feel validated and okay. And so when then my dad started bringing in weird concepts and ways of thinking that weren't part of the realm of the crew that I was hanging out with, it's actually put a bit of a distance between us there for a little while.
So interesting.
It was really for the chase to be accepted, to be honest, which is sad now. Look back on it, but
what is? We spoke about this briefly last night over a couple of cocktails.
They were good.
With a couple of other things. What does acceptance and validation look like, or what did it look like for you in your 20s, maybe the first part of your 30s, and if you're vulnerable and open enough to say what it looks like to you now? You don't have to go to that last one if you don't want to.
Should we get vulnerable, Blakey? Why not? So this is a perfect little segue here of that evolution along with the validation. A big part of it was around girls for me as a guy. So I think there were probably the main pillars for me is one is that physical ability sort of in sports. So I was naturally quite good at sports. But that was important to me. And that's what brought me up, like in the social standing. Right? I was, school sports captain and the AFL, the team captain. And that really put me on a bit of a pedestal in a way. And so validation around, it was mostly around the guys, was around that. And then again, validation to the guys was how well you do with girls. And so growing up, there were probably the two things that I based a lot of what I did around to prove myself.
You know what's interesting with that? I'm thinking that as well, and I completely agree with sport and girls.
Anyone we've missed? Any little point we've missed there, mate?
I've got heaps of ways that I validate myself in the world. What's interesting is being smart is almost detrimental to acceptance at that early stage.
Being smart had no bearing on anything, really. I mean, I was, again, reasonably intelligent. I didn't try to be less smart for any reason. I just put my focus on the other things.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think, there were if you happen to be good looking, good at sport and smart, then you had it all.
Yeah. In the eyes of a year 10, 11, 12 student.
And the very small group that you wanted to be part of.
Yeah.
Right? It was often the people that were the ones, the bullies and the teasing ones, and the rest too potentially weren't that intelligent or great at studying. I won't say intelligent because there's different levels of that. Maybe their area of skill wasn't around study, and so they struggle with that. So their way would be sport and physical bits and pieces. So, and that's what I naturally gravitated towards.
We spoke about this last night, just being vulnerable for a second. We spoke about like different goals and stuff like that, and I said, well, mine over the next 12 months or longer is to see how I show up in the world without ego, addictions, validation, acceptance, and approval, which is a very interesting...
In 1 year?
In 1 year. Ego will take 5 on its own. But what does that look like to you now? Like, because there's a really good level of self-awareness from you, full credit. What child, if we put it in childhood trauma, which in a roundabout way it is, where does that still affect your life? Well,
I'm in a bit of a transition, and I'm not sure if I can answer that 100% right now. One thing I'm dealing with a lot at the moment, which I have been for a while, is this experience of discomfort and moving out of like the known, which is, the money and the job and the girls and what I was known to be and known for. And so I think I'm on this exploration phase of what it is. I'm very often when I go into, if I might do a workshop with someone else, I try not to be too specific on what I want to work on. You might go in and do a session with someone, and whether they're doing energy work or a therapist or whatever, and I sort of tend to be like, look, I don't feel quite like I'm really there yet, as in my truest experience of myself.
Yeah.
How that looks, I don't know, because I think if you attach too closely to a certain idea,
Agreed.
the blinkers can be on, and you
Yep.
might miss all this other shit you got to work on in the meantime. So I kind of asked for, internally. I said, look, I'm in the business of evolution, expansion, growth, and with that's going to come some revelations and discomfort, and that's kind of what I've asked for. So it's for me this continual slap in the face, and then you have the pendulum swings. You're like, yeah, life's fucking awesome, and then it's like, bang, there you go again.
Yeah.
And so it's a continual experience of that, but then to be more and more okay with it.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
100%.
More resilient to those swings.
Yeah. Because and again, throw myself under the bus a little bit here, what I have noticed, and it would have been an ex-girlfriend, because girlfriends know you best, is an observation that at one point, and something that I'm still aware of, is my validation came and comes through my training and coaching. And a lot of people in this space, I get it, because it's an act of...
people respecting you in that industry, you mean?
Yeah, that, but like getting my own validation of helping people.
Right.
And we're talking to Holly about this. I was talking to Holly about this. Is there's a lot of people in the coaching space who are doing it from to try and fill a void, as opposed to a pure act of service, which is common, and both people are winning at the same time. But like, for example, they feel like they're Superman if they help people, as opposed to feeling confident, powerful, whatever, without that.
Well, do you look at that? I mean, the term validation, how we're using it, can sort of go in a few different ways. Could the validation you're getting almost be that of helping you achieve a purpose, which might be of impacting people's lives? And that I wouldn't look as that. As
it's not the worst thing in the world.
No.
But
it depends what that is, what that end.
Well, I guess the point being is that acts of service should be more so about them, as opposed to a self-fulfilling look at me part, I think.
Or a genuine act of service is to give without wanting to receive in any way.
That's where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
What are you, 18 months in meditation?
6 years of teaching, being a teacher. Just under 18 months. No longer, almost 2 years.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's the biggest? You can go down a few paths if you want. Biggest difference study, meditation, everything to post. When I say post, to now. Other than your weekend choices.
Mate, I still have a good time.
You do.
I'd have to say awareness and a level of being okay with what is. So awareness being awareness of how I operate, and awareness to a level where I can be a little bit more than I was previously, empathetic and compassionate towards others for where they're at. So, if you want to change how you operate, a lot of us don't even realise how we operate. We're in what we're in, right? And so I remember after, a few years of just meditating at the beginning, I asked Mum, I was like, and Dad actually both, because often the question with meditation, if you're doing it for a while, and what happens is it tends to normalise after a bit. So you have this initial contrast where it's like, oh wow, I'm feeling this, and this, and then that normalises to the new you, right? And I went through that, and I was like, oh, maybe it stopped working. And I sort of questioned both my parents, and Mum was like, are you kidding? Like, I've seen the change in you, and to the point where she was very much skeptical as well. She thought I joined a cult. When she heard I was over here doing this stuff, and she flew to Sydney just to learn, seeing the change in me. And my dad, same thing. He goes, mate, if I used to say something to you that didn't align with your beliefs and way of thinking, I'd know about it. I was very judgmental and very pig-headed about my way of doing things. So it has transformed my relationship with my family, and it's changed the style of relationships I have with my friends. Yeah. There's a lot more depth to it. And, we were talking about that before how there's this shift in the people around me are just this.
Yeah, it's fucking
something,
cool.
you know, it's something amazing. And that came from me having a level of awareness around how I used to carry myself and without judging myself for being a dick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the only way you can shift something is by being aware of it. And then I was like, okay, wow, I realised that, you know, I'd see someone acting a certain way at a party and I'd be like, what a knob.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, why is that pissing me off so much? And I'd be like,
It's weird that it was always me that you used to think of that about.
yeah, you weren't so close to it.
But that's true. Like, I love that because I was saying to Katie before, Katie Willie, of like a recovering...
Also a ledge.
Ledge, absolute ledge. And I, recovering narcissist, which is a slow process. But like, no one's intentionally a knob, but I've done a lot of knobby things.
Correct.
And as I... But you also, you saw them back then and you see them now, but there's a level of empathy, understanding and wanting to know why as opposed to judgment. I reckon that is... With NLP, that was my biggest lesson of like empathy, compassion and the why behind everything. Still judge, human nature. Try to catch myself doing it a lot, like it is a huge amount less. Yeah. But it's like, I wonder why they did that, or I wonder why they think that, or like, where does that come from?
We sort of just cultivate a buffer between a reaction or, you know, a judgment or whatever. You have this, whatever they do or say hits you, and instead of previously just reacting with whatever it was, you now have a moment to go, catch yourself. Okay, maybe this is because blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But also to yourself.
100%.
But then there is a piece of that where you can potentially get caught going down the rabbit hole of the why too much. Bless you.
Oh, God bless.
So
getting caught in story.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like almost like, you know, sometimes you won't actually know. And there's only certain levels you can get to, I believe as well. I think sometimes it's a piece of, look, that was whatever it was for a reason, which is fine. And I'm aware of it now, and let's move past it.
Totally. Yeah. Because you can get caught in story, or you can just, which I think...
We should be careful out with the victim. Then you can be like, there's that line between, it's because I had this upbringing, blah, blah, and it's like, well, it depends how you use that.
I did a lot of that last year.
The victim stuff?
Yeah. I don't know
you've had a bit of an interesting little period, haven't you?
It's been a belter. What I noticed in the few different circles that I've played in, with the NLP world, they're very, how can we program going forward? In the spiral spiritual space, they're very, how much can we heal from the past?
Yep.
And I think too much of either leaves you unbalanced. Like last year, I spent a lot of time in history.
Yep.
And it gets very dark if you don't go, okay, this part, you know, let's spend 30 minutes getting caught in where that might have cultivated or been created. And then let's work on being positive and using that mindset to create something going forward. You can get caught so dark and deep and get fucking nowhere. And you've seen me go down the hole.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned the two contrasting
outlooks,
which they're important, yes, but there's I teach a certain type of meditation, obviously, but I'm very much aware and interested in a whole range of philosophy. And I think one really interesting and brilliant philosophy is the Buddhist philosophy. And one of the fundamentals of that is the concept that all humans, the nature of a human being is to experience suffering.
Yeah.
And that suffering is due to speculation of the past or of the future.
Good.
So this massive mindfulness meditation craze we're in now is about cultivating a level of being in the present moment.
Yeah.
And not spending, like the wandering mind was deemed to be where all the suffering came from. Because we're from the past, the what ifs, maybe this is why, and in the future of I hope I can get to this by doing this work. We're never really right here, and we're always, I'll be happy when I work on the past or get to the, you know, that's a syndrome I talk about a bit, the old I'll be happy when syndrome. I think being too caught up in, you know, the plans for the future and what the goal we set is or why in the past, what can be beneficial in some, endeavors and sort of some maybe therapies, we've got to be careful we don't spend our time in that purely because that'll just continue the suffering in my opinion anyway.
Totally. Is it the Buddhists that talk about being caught in the past really equating to depression?
Yeah.
And being caught in the future anxiety?
Yeah. And a lot of that's around, the anxiety particularly is around the suppression because a lot of the, we're going to have feelings and life's going to happen and shit's going to happen. And, their anxiety comes from, and the stress around that comes from us not thinking we have the ability to cope with it, right?
Yeah.
Stress is good for us. If we're not putting ourselves out of our comfort zone, we're not growing and evolving. And actually, a level of stress is great for us. But when we feel that, a lot of us are like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. This is different and new. We
need
try
to act on it or
suppress it. And then that actually makes it worse and gives it more credence.
What? I like that word.
Credence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never used it in a sentence. I'm going to try and use it this afternoon.
I throw it in every now and then. It feels good.
Yeah, I'm going to use it this afternoon. One of the things I like about what you, me and Paddy have is, firstly, we have a 100% strike rate of good times when I'm in Sydney.
So just for anyone who doesn't know, Paddy is a really good mate of both of ours and also my housemate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I should put that in context. Is there's just a really good level of chat amongst those feelings. Mm-hmm. Like we just had lunch before and I was telling you why I'm feeling a little bit anxious about a situation that may or may not evolve. Hence the reason we talk about anxiety being in the future.
Which also, just quietly for you, is a shift in being the guy that was always sort of had to know the answers to now actually be able to go, look, I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
Which is something that I've seen a shift in you. Coach hat off and this is actually, I haven't got my shit all sorted. It's great.
I did, and this wasn't intentional, but I did, at one point, I thought I was perfect.
I remember you saying this. I died when I heard you say this.
It's one of the biggest realizations I ever had. It was about 3 years ago, I reckon. And I can't remember, it would have been one of the girlfriends who brought it to my attention, no doubt. And I literally remember up until that point that I was perfect and everyone else had the problems.
Wow, that's heavy.
That's a real fascinating place that I must have been in.
Yeah. Well, you also spoke about and stemming from that was your relationship with money and things like that. It's amazing. It shows where you can be.
You can just
justify.
Oh, mate, justify anything.
The nature of us as human beings is we will look and find evidence to support our belief.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't have, say, self-worth, it's the same old story. You give someone who has no self-worth and doesn't believe they're good looking or whatever, 8 compliments and 1, light criticism, what do they see?
Criticism.
You can translate that into what you're seeing.
Totally. I've used that example before in a relationship sense. It's like you could tell your girlfriend that she looks beautiful 10 times, because they all do. And then you could go, oh, babe, I'm not sure about that dress once. And it really depends on their headspaces. I think science shows that we are programmed more to pick up the negatives, but that scale can be skewed depending on where your headspace is at.
Well, the whole neuroplasticity means we can change the way we operate and our triggers. But we're definitely, as human beings, we are skewed to detect negative or detect. This is from our primal parts of the brain and how evolution has brought us to a point where now some of these old ways of always looking for
evidence to back.
Yeah. It was always about detecting anything that was of danger to our beliefs, way of living that might challenge us to keep us safe. And it's an inbuilt part of our psyche and our biology. And so we still operate that way, but it's become maladaptive.
Yeah. That's a super helpful point, and I can't remember the exact terminology, but it's essentially evidence-based biasm or biased evidence, where you will seek out evidence to back up your current belief system than to challenge it. And if there's one thing that I reckon people take out of this podcast episode, and you're going to come through with a lot of gold nuggets, at the very least, understand that concept, because you'll keep replaying the same thing over and over again in your world if you continue to seek out evidence to back up your current. So to give you another example, in case you haven't already got it, the majority of my clientele is still women at this stage, and unfortunately a lot of them have had a bad relationship at some stage. And within that, there's still women who are like, blokes are shit. I'm like, all right, well, how shit's your dad? How shit's your granddad? Oh, so not all blokes are shit. And then like you just slowly break it down. But it's a really valid point because you will seek out and you will find and you'll probably attract exactly where your head's at until you start to question it. What's been the biggest lesson for you over the last 12 months?
It's still been around that being okay with discomfort and not being in control. Yeah, I see that. What's that smile for?
Talk me through your control piece.
So, a big part of who I am, was based around being, powerful, being in control, knowing right, and so I would say, you're a recovering narcissist. I'm a recovering control freak.
Yep.
So, and the nature of the process I've gone through in the last, 12 odd months, it's been a real shift in relinquishing the known, the job, the lifestyle, big part of that was around, picking up girls and the rest and regular income and who I am and my friend groups and that's really all changed and it's all now, I've made decisions because I'm interested in this, wherever it's going to take me, this little pathway, but there's also aspects that are really out of my control and it's exciting because I don't like to use the word bad because nothing is good about it. It just is, but this is kind of exciting having this feeling of not necessarily being comfortable. Like financially, I'm, literally who knows right now.
Yeah.
And being okay with not being in control, but having a level of trust in the process and in the universe and in myself that it'll play out, in a way, and it might play out in a way that I don't envision to be what I need. Because I still have this, rough... I remember I had this amazing realisation when I was travelling last year. I did 3 months. I was just travelling around the world and it was great. And I was like, I'm relinquishing control. I'm just going with the flow. And I was telling myself this with the intention that by doing it, it would play out in a certain way.
Yeah. That was big for you because I remember you had some pretty strong moments of whatever the feeling was, anxiety or like unknown. Like that was big that 3 months.
There was some slaps in the face where I had, you could describe them as not so amazing experiences due to me not genuinely doing what I convinced myself and others that I was doing.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Right. So I was telling people that, I was going this part of the trip and I was just going to, just invite this girl down if it's part of it. Whatever happens and blah, blah. And I was telling myself that I was just, that was me going with the flow. But it wasn't. It was me trying to control because it meant that I would have had a girl to hang out with, would have, had some sex. And I wanted the holiday to look a certain way.
Yeah.
Me traveling the Italian coast with a German girl, doing my thing, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And end up being a not very great experience for us. We hadn't seen her in a while and we just mismatched. And I was like, that wasn't me. I was convincing myself that I was going with the flow and relinquishing control, but I wasn't. I'm organised for it to come down, had this all planned out.
Yeah.
And it was amazing where my head was at, and it was a bit of a smack, and the experience wasn't that great for either of us. I mean, it was fine. And I was like, wow, if I'd genuinely just gone with it and relinquished control of what that holiday might look like, that piece of the holiday, who knows what experience I could have had. Does that make sense?
100%. I got sidetracked there for a second because you mentioned a German girl, and I don't remember knowing this bit.
Right. What do you want to know?
We'll talk about it later. So your biggest lesson over the last 12 months is surrender.
Yeah, surrender, being okay with discomfort. Surrender control, being okay with discomfort.
Being okay with discomfort, what does that look like? Is it a case of because I can only imagine you feel more than you've ever felt. So discomfort's actually more painful, so to speak, than it used to be. So when you're okay with it, it's not a case of suppressing it or distracting yourself. Is it, sitting with it and choosing to do nothing with it? Like, what does being okay with it look like?
That's a good question. So, being okay with the discomfort means not searching out external things to either move away from it or numb it, and feeling it, but not then also overanalyzing it. You know,
Gotcha.
there's because I'm going through, and I have been going through little stages of discomfort, and all right, so if we're going to get real sherry here, so we've spoken this a bit with women, right?
Yeah.
And so in the past, a big part of my, you'd sit around the lads and you'd almost take turns matching stories of, the last time you picked up this chick and and this and
A,
that,
B, and C.
right?
Yep.
And you couldn't wait to tell your story.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But it'll make you feel part of the
Acceptance.
lads. Yeah, acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then being very much in the business of, expansion, over the last 12 months has probably been my least successful with women ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The point where months without being with a girl, and that is really uncomfortable
Yeah.
for me. My old
me, your old self
would have gone out, gotten shit-faced, just gone to
100%.
fuck something.
Yeah.
Which sounds horrendous to even say that we use the word something, you know, to go fuck someone, okay? And that's what I've done in the past, just to move past that discomfort. And then, you'd get back in the game, so-called.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, I wonder what's in this. What juice is in this? Is it about me being okay being by myself, or finding different ways to have a conversation with guys and show your value in a group of guys?
Yeah.
Do I 100% know the answer? Not just yet, but there's some juicy nuggets sort of coming out of that. So that's a more specific example of discomfort I'm going through, and not trying to numb it or find ways to fix it.
Yeah.
In my way of fixing it.
That's good. So discomfort. I like that.
Most of us don't.
Don't like discomfort. No. It's interesting because we as humans are in this constant state of either the past, the future, away from or toward, as opposed to what is. That's interesting. I reckon for me, and I know we spoke about it briefly last night, and I know this is a really cool skill set that we have in our group now, is I don't reckon I've ever felt loneliness properly like I had over the last 9 months. And what's interesting is there's a lot more people feeling that. In fact, I think 60 Minutes or Channel 7 did a full story on it of like the epidemic that is loneliness. Like it's massive. And it wasn't, I moved to Melbourne for a bit. It wasn't that there wasn't people around. It was that I was going through a challenging time, and people that were in my immediate circle, so to speak, weren't... Everyone's doing their best.
Yeah.
Firstly, I want to kind of preface that. But weren't amazing at having my situation be validated, hearing me out, listening to my story. And it kind of came back. I really found a strong interest in understanding the term... I've had a brain freeze. It'll come back to me. But being heard, essentially.
Right.
Because a lot of people aren't heard properly.
No.
And whether it's right, wrong, whatever, you want to be validated in that moment of what you're going through, because it's what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So being heard, being seen, being understood is amazing. And I know you as well, and even Paddy's had stories where talk to a guy, talk to a girl, whatever it may be, they're like, fucking hell, this is like, you understand me better than so-and-so has, and I've been with them for 5 years, or so-and-so has, and I've been friends with them for 7 years. Like, just listening. When I was in Melbourne, Paul Roos, who's one of the greatest coaches of all time, was like, mate, the art of listening is dead. If you can become a good listener, minus whatever skill set you've got, your value goes up and massively.
Listening without fixing.
That's the bit.
That's particularly for us males, right? Is trying to have our shit sorted, which is a big part of what we're supposed to be.
The macho, yeah.
And again, I'd say that's a big one for you and for me. We've both learned is to genuinely listen and go, okay, and not go, okay, how can I solve this problem? You know, how can I be the hero, or how can I play the part that I feel I need to play in a situation, as opposed to just going, okay,
Yeah.
cool, you're not feeling so great right now. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go from here, as opposed to going, okay, what can I use my little book of knowledge? Or I listened to a podcast that talked about trauma the other day. What can I drop into this situation? What can I regurgitate here? You know, it's just...
The term which I lost for a second is called holding space.
Ah, yes.
And it was, as I said, everyone does the best they can, but it really, that was my toughest time so far in life, I reckon. That period where I closed up 6 weeks, moved to Melbourne, and was challenged in a number of different areas of my life.
And it was the time of my life that I have heard from you the most.
Yeah. And credit to the ex, she was the one where she was like, you got to reach out. And here's me who thinks like he's leading away in a certain way for men to kind of be up and vulnerable and whatever else. But I wasn't really sharing that well from a vulnerable place, because I always wanted to be seen as slightly ahead or above, because Coach Blake was there, as opposed to equal. And it wasn't that I didn't value any of my friendships or anything, but it was this like lack of vulnerability that meant that we were sharing on an equal level. So I just didn't, because a lot of my good friends, you're not included in this, but a lot of my good friends, like a lot of the 6-week girls, you're one of my best friends, but a lot of my good friends now have either come through 6 weeks, especially a lot of my good girlfriends, have either come through 6 weeks or one-on-one coaching clients. They're not clients necessarily anymore. They're now like really good friends. So in my eyes, I couldn't really tell them everything that was going on, because there was still this little
you felt like you
separation
had to,
where I was Coach Blake or I was Trainer Blake.
Which there is a level when they are your client, there's a level that needs to be. It's not your time to...
Totally.
But then you could use strategically sharing some of your deeper stuff to bring a level of awareness from there, and to go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, even he's gone through this and he's got through it or not. Do you feel that, I'm guessing the answer is yes, that since you started being a little bit more aware of that and shifting that your relationships have then changed?
Massively. I reckon in the space of a week, I think you might have been one of them. Holly was another one. I can't remember who the third one was. Might have been Katie. She's like, this is the best conversation I've ever had with you.
Yeah.
Because it was level playing field, and there was no ego, no like hierarchy, no I've got to hold this part of me because I'm Coach Blake. It was just like, fuck, I'm struggling at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling. And it was everything at once.
It was great to hear. In a nice way, because it was like, you were literally like, this is what I used to do with money and convince myself this. And, I've had 51 ego deaths in the last day about this sort of things. I was like, yes, here he is. It's,
Yeah, it was eye-opening. But it really brought to my attention that I want to develop that skill set, because I never want anyone to feel what I felt. You can have people around you and feel like the loneliest person.
So you were just lonely as
horrible,
fuck.
horrible. The actual challenges I went through, which I'll go over at some stage in terms of detail, but the challenges I went through compared small amounts to the lack of, I'll say warmth, although it's definitely not the word I'm looking for, lack of warmth that I felt in terms of the people in my immediate space helping me be seen, understood, validated. Again, validation is just a thing in your head. Like where I was, I look back now, come on, mate, like whatever. But at that time, I felt that deep. And it's really a skill set. Like holding space is really a skill set. Listening without intent to speak, full presence, listening without needing to give an opinion unless asked for, listening without judgment, like, because you can see with someone when they're fully present, or you can see when you're speaking to someone and it's like they're almost heating up, ready to like speak when they get their chance. They're not fully present, listening.
Looking around, trying to check their phone. It's like,
it's a beautiful skill, and like it's one thing that I now pride myself on in terms of being better at, because I was horrible. like most men, it's like, how can I fix this person? I think men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's broken into two sections, the male section and the female section. And I remember being on a boat cruise, must have been 3 years ago. And it was the first time it clicked for me reading that book where I was like, oh, fuck, I'm Mr. Fix It. But there's like, welcome to being a male who wants to fix everything. As opposed to just being there listening, like hearing them out till they've actually emptied that tank, whatever that looks like. And whatever size that is. If they need to empty it, let them empty the tank.
Well, that's a bit of a disconnect into the whole masculinity piece, and what we need to be as men is to have our shit sorted and to fix things and be the one of power, which is something that that's probably another interesting realization to go into more specifics, and a little transition that's still very much in play is that of what it is to be a man.
A man.
As I say with a question mark at the end.
I think we're on the same page with this. How does, and you've said it a couple of times, what does it look like now to be a man? Because if we go back, you and I, 3 years, 5 years, when we were troubled souls. 5 years ago, being a man was how much sex you could get.
Yep.
How hard you could go on the drink.
Yep.
How much tin you could throw around the gym.
Yep.
Probably to a certain
money, earning money, good job.
How big's your wallet? Yeah, how big's your wallet? How good's your status as your role at the job? To a certain degree, like how many blokes you could get around every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Sport you played. What do you base your masculinity or your being off now? If you're going to base it off something, or what do you pride yourself on as a man these days?
Trying my best to figure out and then be more authentic to who I truly am.
Yeah.
And whether that means sometimes being vulnerable or not okay or whatever it may be, showing that. But then still owning the fact that I have urges and ways that I sort of want to be as a man, a male, and to be okay with that. So what I mean by that is, having a level of awareness, slowly evolve over time, and looking back at how I used to carry myself and treat women and, talk to men about women and all the rest, I was like, wow, that's not really great and not really okay. And so I then, I think we touched on, this is an interesting thing a few of us are trying to get our heads around, is then I went too far the other way.
Yeah, bro.
So I wanted to make all the girls feel comfortable and safe and nice. And so, but I lost some of that primal instinct, like
animalistic. I was talking
which
about
is
this
okay. Which is fine. Like, we don't have to be these, sensitive, new age softies. I mean, if that's totally authentically your nature, then that's okay, and you'll find someone who's going to match, the masculine that you might not have as much of or whatever. But I was genuinely trying to push back.
Yeah.
Some of that, because I used to, when I was younger, I used to have quite a temper.
I remember the ends of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I got to a point where I wouldn't even allow that to almost, like, if I was angry at something, just say a big fuck and get it out for a moment, and then it's done. But I was almost suppressing that. When I'd be out with girls, I'd be too soft and nice. I wouldn't show that true, masculine stuff I had inside me. And so
good.
Right now, to be a man means being okay. And also, I thought that man equaled masculine.
Yeah.
Not man equals
masculine and feminine.
However that looks. And so getting my head around exploring what that balance looks like is also part of then being a true expression of me as a man. Yeah.
Fucking love that. A couple of nights ago, I was having this conversation with a friend, how her ex-partner had lost that as well, because frustration, anger, sadness, like all of those are deemed weakness.
Yep.
But fuck, mate, if I'm fucking angry...
Or potentially, I actually used to see anger as power and strength, because I would project,
Interesting.
Because I would, when I was angry, it was like, grrr, and that was that coming through, and I would project in a certain way, which wasn't very constructive, but I actually didn't look at that as a weakness.
Yeah.
I looked at it as power almost.
Interesting.
Strength, which is
Maybe my upbringing had me see it as weakness. Slightly different. It's interesting though, because a number of my clients will say nice things like you're very unconditional and it's easy to kind of let everything out of the bag, which is awesome. Great. I think that's a great thing. In a relationship or when you got kids, being fully unconditional and letting your partner play full out can trigger a lot of people. So like, because the majority of my market is still females, they'll come to me, like even things like their sexuality is like, you know, there's a whole slut shaming when you're in your teens and whatever else, and you start to suppress these needs and wants. But one of the most amazing things you can do is let someone play full out. Everything. Feel all emotion, not be triggered by it, anchor and hold space if need be. But like, and we talk about Whole a bit. She's a wild cat who has a strong array of emotions and plays them full out. Full credit to Trent, because it's like, for a lot of blokes, they find it hard to hold the fort and hold space to play full out. But reversing that, it's the same with blokes. They're not allowed to play full out.
Mm-mm. Oh,
nah,
no.
Fuck no.
They've got this idea of the place that we're meant to
Yep.
to fill, or the role we're meant to play.
Yeah.
And so we kind of have to fit that.
And then you get in trouble because you lose the fire in your guts. The amount of women who've been like, he's like dead inside. And I was, as I was saying a couple of days ago when I was hanging out with a friend, is like, I think blokes, and at some stage I think we're going to develop some kind of men's work, but I think blokes once every 4 months, as a general rule, but what I've seen, every 4 months should go off and do some kind of masculine, animalistic, like find that fire within them and get them revved up again. And if you need to let go of like anger and whatever else, get it out. But like there needs to be retreats, whatever it may be, where blokes can go and fully express and fire themselves back up and be that like, because females, without knowing everything about what females want, just speaking firsthand, females are missing that as well. So while we've been told to like, oh, don't be angry, but yet not only does it suppress those, it suppresses like the love and the good array of emotions as well. So you become this beige, fucking boring, in between blank.
You want to feel everything.
Feel it all. And full credit to the people who can hold that.
See, I'd say that that's a relationship I'd like to have.
Yeah.
And being single now, it's easy for me to sit here and go, yeah, I want to hold that space. But I think I'd still struggle if a girl was like, I'm going to be, and this is what I find attractive in women is their quirks and owning it and being authentic and just, expressing that. However, I had this, to be brutally honest, this strong feeling that I would still struggle a bit with that. I'd be like, wow, okay.
Yep.
Ooh,
oh man, it's hard.
So we're just
doing our best and not doing it very well sometimes.
No.
But that's what I want to bring that forward because we like from the outside, our Instas and whatever else show the highlights reel, but both of them. Do you know Sash as well?
Yep.
Yeah. So the three main girlfriends have been completely different. You know that, very different, and they have triggered different things in me. Very different things. But it is like probably over the last 6 months with a lot of like soul searching and reflection, even though I kind of knew it before, it's super clear to me that nothing is a problem of theirs. Nothing. It's all mine. And I kind of knew it in parts. Like 2 relationships ago was probably my most challenging because she was the most polar opposite, as you know, polar opposite of everything me. And that was the point where I started to wake up, but that was the point where my world was the right world. E.g., she's an introvert, I'm an extrovert, or somewhere on that sliding scale. You're wrong, I'm right.
I need to bring her over here.
Come over this way, as opposed to loving her fully in that. Like that's the skill that is like front of mind for whenever that next real life's like, love them fully to allow them to play full out and fuck yeah, of course you're going to get triggered. Own it. Work through it. you
It
bitch.
shows we literally have no fucking idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we're
Just love
fumbling
more.
our way through.
Love more and own your shit more. But that's like, I want to make that clear because someone reached out to me the other day and, she's a beautiful human who I've actually known for ages. And she used the word pedestal. And I was like, that is a bad thing. Because I'm only going to go downhill. Like she wants to start coaching. I'm only going downhill from here. For this perception that you've created of me, fuck, my world is messy. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do it to anyone. Don't put anyone on a pedestal. You're a wizard, magician, like manifest meditation. Don't put you on a pedestal. I don't think. Do you disagree?
As in, they shouldn't put me on a pedestal?
No.
No. Well,
No.
I'm very clear about that in this whole... There's a bit of a... Which is a bit of a icky subject in the spiritual world and
it's a
more in
fascinating
meditation is the whole guru complex and what it actually means. You know, guru being the remover of shadows, i.e. someone that can help you evolve.
Yeah.
But then, unfortunately, there's been a lot of instances where put themselves on a pedestal and suddenly there's a bit of bypassing going on and they can do
So
certain things
much
because
bypassing.
I'm up here and when you down there finally come over to where I am, then you'll get it and then you'll be blah, blah. And so I'm very, very clear when I teach. Some people are like, oh, so you're, what do I call you? Someone actually said the other day, what do I call you now? I think they were being a bit facetious, to be honest. And I sort of laughed, said, fuck, I don't know. Like, what do you, and it was a bit of a joke and I'm very clear about there is no above.
Yeah.
It's just I'm in this space where I happen to have some knowledge and a skill set that I've worked on that I can share things that might be to help you, but then your skill set might be something totally different that you can help me on. Which, who says that being a meditation teacher in the spiritual realm is any better than being amazing at finance?
That's
I mean,
good.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And so, I always call myself a bit of a rogue in terms of that kind of world because I'm not overly in line with that, hierarchy of spiritual leaders and blah, blah. I mean, I love knowledge about it, but the rest, we're all fumbling our way through.
Fumbling is a really good word and you've used that a couple of times.
Yeah, because I
That's
feel like
spot
I'm
on.
fucking fumbling my way through.
Fucking
and I've
oath.
happened to manage to, learn some nuggets that hopefully I can help pass on.
Yeah, I like that. Talking of fumbling.
Uh-oh.
What... Because most people that tune in still at this stage are females, and most somehow want male perspective, which is nice. What would you want a female to know about males in a relationship sense of like, everyone's doing their best, but if it's something you've picked up observing females, if it's feedback that you've had from guys about what they feel like they're missing in relationships, what's a thing that might be a recurring theme?
What I'm finding a real recurring theme with a lot of, relationships that I see, is that there seems to be this sudden control factor going on where it's almost like, I better ask the missus if I can be left out or let out or, and almost... Some of them they bring on themselves, but some almost force the female partner to play that role of the baddie who suddenly represses the guy about to do what he wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
But I also honestly believe that often it's the guy who almost wants that and plays into that.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I would love to.
Does the bloke not trust himself?
I think that's depending in what way you mean, but probably there's parts of that.
Yeah.
But almost an encouragement of guys to try different shit, to fail.
Yeah.
To, it's okay not to necessarily have to have your shit all together, but also to go out and be a bloke every now and then as well.
It's interesting, isn't it, how different ours are, our different worlds.
Well, Flip, you've been in relationships for the last part of it. I've been mostly single for the last few years. Very different worlds.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I only as a speculator, because it's been, the last relationship I was in was it now 4, 5?
Weens.
5?
Weens?
Yeah. Which was Excuse me.
You were a very different human then, dude.
Yeah, very different human, but we're still friends on great terms.
Yeah,
she's a
good
great
chick.
girl, and
Great chick.
there was nothing horrendous that happened in that, which we're both lucky for. And,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to think of, there aren't even standouts now of things that I wish she'd done differently to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating now with what I think's going on with my friends' relationships when I really don't know.
Yeah. I have a lot of these conversations because I like them as opposed to making judgment, but I do love talking relationships. What more is there than love? But one of the things that's jumping out, and it's a recurring theme, at least with the people I talk about, is wanting to be like fully supported, like arm in arm, tackling the world together, which I reckon is a fucking great trait. Because so often it's this like me versus you thing.
Well, that was
fucked.
sort of leads into, I suppose, what I was saying, right?
Yeah.
It was like, she's not letting me do this because she doesn't want me to have fun with the guys.
Yeah.
Or, I've got to now bloody do this with her, or blah, blah. It's more like what we tend to do, which sets ourselves up for failure, and this is a whole nother conversation, is we go into relationships to fill a piece or to get something, right? And suddenly we say, this person's got to give us this, and this. And you're setting them up for failure.
Yeah, they're fucked.
You know what I mean? Literally.
Yeah.
And so what we need to try and shift the approach is to let's go in this relationship to collaborate together and grow and hold space. And that is more of the way I would like to approach a relationship.
Aubrey talks about that a lot. He's just, for those...
Who's Aubrey?
He's taking the piss. Guy called Aubrey Marcus, if you haven't sussed him out.
like him, dude?
I love him. Proper fanboy. He talks about it a lot as like, and I feel like it, I'm not sure how I feel. It feels a little less heartful than I would like, but he's like, relationships are for growth.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it. It feels, I'd like more love in that statement, but he's
love
like...
can support that growth.
Oh, it should be, 100%. And he's like, all those triggers, because I think the unconscious human looks at a trigger and goes, that person's fucking annoying. My partner's annoying. My partner, has A, B, and C. When really, it should be like, thank you is a very strong word to use in this context, but thank you, you just brought to light some of my dark. And then just fucking work on it, own it, and keep moving.
You are my guru.
You are my guru. But keep working, like, your partners and your kids, from what I told, don't have any kids, obviously, that I'm aware of anyway. Shouldn't laugh about that. They are going to be the biggest thing for you. Like, they are going to bring forward all your shit. You're not hiding from them.
No.
Nah.
What's it? They say, it's a bit of a cliche term, but they say everyone's a mirror. The ones that trigger you are the mirrors, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
We trigger each other every now and then, but with our desire to grow, we now see it as differences as opposed to, I think we do anyway, do we? As opposed to, fuck, you annoy the shit out of me when you do this. But that's like, because some of ours are, and it happens when there's some things that are polar opposite. You're a very organised person. I'm slightly more chaotic. Is that our biggest one? That's the one that gets us most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the being okay with the fact that your way might not necessarily be the right way or the better way.
I think your way's working for you better than my way is for me on that
I didn't
one.
want to say that because that sort of goes against my last comment, but
that part of my program is not necessarily working for me. But that's like, it's insight, because we can laugh about it now because we know that between you and I is the biggest trigger. And between me and Katie, me and Holly, me and Patty, different triggers. Totally fine. And they don't even compare to the triggers that come up in a relationship. But at the end of the day, it's not your problem that I feel that way when you are so meticulous with what time we need to be, what we're wearing, how we're getting there.
mate, the outfit thing is you. Come on. What are you wearing tonight, bro?
It's good. It really does shine light on the fact that I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't know. I'll organise it on the day. And that doesn't work for you at all. And that's fine. When people come to your page, what do you want them to have in mind? Instagram page, sorry. or website, whatever. What do you want them to have in mind about you before they reach out? And the reason I ask that is that whole like pedestal, social media, you're only seeing the highlights. What would you like them to think? Strange question, I know.
It is very strange.
Don't know where I came up with it from.
Right. Well, a big part of what I am trying to do is normalize meditation and normalize practices around that and normalize people teaching it and normalize people practicing it and remove weird stigma, and hopefully by sharing some knowledge, showing, real me, a bit rough around the edges, that you're able to be open to new ways of thinking. But I'm trying to think if I have to set how someone, the mindset they're in coming into my page, just be actually and open to not taking things too seriously.
Good. I think that's what you do well.
So yeah,
what you do well, and it's what you want to put forward anyway, is I have been in the self-development spiritual circles for a bit, and the perception that people have of meditation teachers is probably pretty fair. Like,
that's partly why I became a teacher.
Totally. You're normalising it, because we could do a meditation course and then go out for a couple of beers and watch the AFL.
I'd hope so.
Yeah.
That is normally what I feel like doing after a meditation course, is
Is
going
it?
out for a couple of
Do you?
cocktails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's coming from Manhattan?
Yeah.
Oh.
When two blokes go out for cocktails, they get questioned, just like we did last night.
Which again is interesting,
It's
right?
funny.
There.
Yeah, it's funny. But I do think that's a really good point, because you do it well, and while it's still fresh, so to speak, 18 months in, that will be, I think, your strongest point of difference of like, yeah, you could do a meditation course on a Saturday and go to a friend's 30th on a Sunday and have a few drinks and maybe have a big night and whatever else. That's not a thought that ever resonates with people's understanding of a meditation teacher, and that will be one of the things that has more and more people reach out to you for meditation than anyone else, I think.
Well, I hope. I've been questioned and being challenged and being called a walking oxymoron and contradiction and blah, blah.
Fascinating.
And I'm like, well, why is that? It's like, because you swear and you drink, you still party and blah, blah. I'm like, okay, continue.
Yeah.
But you're a meditation teacher. And
Keep
well,
going.
meditation teacher's meant to be insert X, Y, X, Y, X, Y there. I'm like, there you go.
Yeah.
Explain what meditation is. Oh, it's... And again, so it's a whole level of this weird stigma around it. And I'll make a point of that, of showing that it is what you see on the pictures and the story is the same what you'll see walking down the street.
Yeah.
You'll see me being having a shot of tequila at the bar or whatever, and that's fine.
That's fucking brilliant, and for so many reasons. And I wish that I had considered that through my 17 years as a trainer. And we've spoken about this because I built an identity that I was trying to be more polished than I am. Yep. I'm really not that polished at all. I'm far from.
I can validate that.
And attached, because 17 years is pretty much half my life. So half my life I've been building an identity and trying to polish it so I look a certain way. And it's not really, it was never a conscious thing. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to show up like this when really I'm this. I just moved further and further and further away from who I was. And now it's a case of like, okay, cool. And now you're going through this process of peeling back the layers, stripping away the ego, the identity, all of that, and seeing what this little nugget looks like underneath it all.
I feel like from this is observation from sitting over here from you. I think a lot of that came from you doing a lot of comparison and listening to a lot of coaches and other people and trying to create this idea of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And you're almost adding on layers as opposed to stripping them back and allowing your true expression of yourself to come through. You're putting the layers on top to create the ideal picture. Yeah. Which end up putting a lot more strain on you.
Heaps of strain. I remember, obviously, a lot of this all took place post-Vipassana in Melbourne. I'm weary of the time because we'll have to go into Vipassana another time. But I remember all these realizations really hitting me at the same time, which was a lot to handle. Hence the reason I was on the phone to you every day. But I remember in my head going, oh, fuck. I think I need to be a serious coach to be taken seriously. And then the next morning, I remember seeing a thing of Will Smith. And that bloke has wisdom, like lots of wisdom. And there he's been a joker. But for me, I was getting stiffer and stiffer and stiffer and tighter. Because to be taken seriously, I need to be serious.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that popped up. I was like, bang, there's my moment.
Oh, I still remember you, and a part of us saying carry yourself out socially or drinking, and I'd almost, in front of you, this is years ago, I'd almost feel like there was a level of judgment, like, look at him.
Oh,
you know, me doing my thing or whatever. I was like, who's this guy?
I know. I didn't even know I was doing it at the time, but a few people picked me up on it. Because the other thing as well, which you and Flash and people have been saying for years, is like, oh, where'd the fun Blake go? And it took me like a decade of hearing this to go, oh, okay, there's an interesting thought. Whether I'm in a relationship and I all of a sudden stiffen up and become someone, or if this constant building disappear. I'm working on that as well. It's throwing me off course. Whether it's the relationship and me stiffening up there, or whether it's the like constant building of identities on top of serious coach Blake that just took me further away from the fun Blake, which really comes out when he's had a few drinks, which I think is really just the true version of me. You know, I think you see interesting colours in people when they've knocked back a couple, and there's a recurring theme that I'm heaps more fun. Whereas some people are more like dramatic or upset or whatever else, but like that's when I've just let everything go and just I'm free.
It's unfortunate that we need
falling. So what you saying?
Stop right there. That it is. We have to have a couple of drinks to allow that to happen.
Totally.
Which was, that's something, another big shift, I'd say. There's a shift in relationship around alcohol and drugs. And now I still, love having a good drink.
Don't you?
But it's not a dependence.
Yeah. Is that a social lubricant back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very much, one of those guys who would, walk into a bar and I would struggle to have a conversation with someone without wanting to go get a drink. I'd just go to the bar and get a drink.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd be in conversations with someone, the drink's coming to an end, and I'm starting to tap out the conversation because I'm like, where's my next drink coming from?
Yeah.
Whose round is it? Oi, your fucking round, hurry up. Like, hurry up. Or whatever it is, or who's up for a shot? Let's go for a shot. Like,
yeah.
And then if someone wasn't that keen on having a shot or whatever, I would not make them feel so great.
Yeah. That's weird.
So A, a bit of social anxiety, B, wanting them to be, reinforce what I was doing.
Yeah.
That was okay.
Yeah. That's weird. That's weird to think we used to do that, put pressure on people to drink when they didn't want to.
Yep.
Fuck, man, what were we thinking? Not much, to be fair. We weren't thinking.
We were just thinking what we thought we knew.
Yeah. Fuck, we knew it all back in the day, didn't we?
Still don't know shit now, really.
Don't know shit. The more we know, the more we realise we have no idea. And that's fine. We're all right with that. When people want to come and stalk the shit out of you, where do they go?
Stalk the shit out of me, go. Mate, good old Insties, I'm still ticking along there. So, do you want me to spell my name out? Or are you going to write that in the show notes? Or?
I'll write it in the show notes, but for shits and giggles, have a go.
Yeah, so Janoah Van Kekem, so JANOAH VANKEKEM for Mary. Janoah Van Kekem, find me.
I'll put that in the notes for you guys. Thank you. Janoah and I have decided we're going to do what we've called. You came up with a name as well.
It just came to me,
Came to you. You must have just meditated. The quarterly catch-up. So he's going to be on every quarter. There's a third amigo in our little trifecta who we're going to try and get on for the quarterly catch-up as well, which the way that we are going about our worlds, a lot happens in 3 months, so we can check in every 3 months, and then there'll be all your other guests in between that. But that is all for today. We'll see you next week.